Welcome back to Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings, episode 19. This is an exciting episode for us. Oh, by the way, I'm Chris Dorst. I'm the philosophy professor and Steelers fan in the group.
I'm Ajay Nair, the psychiatrist. That's what I do. And I was like, what am I supposed to say? I'm the psychiatrist and the Chiefs fan in this group.
I was saying this is an exciting episode for us because it's totally different agenda than usual. We're making our predictions on the day of the first game of the NFL season. So it's basically the last time one could make sort of full season predictions without any extra informational bias or whatever that would be. So I don't know. Do you want to tell the plan for our predictions, like what things we're going to predict, and then we can get into it.
All right, sounds good. Um, the first, let me just shout out our social media because people have been doing a great job following along. We're at STCF715 on Twitter/X, Instagram, and TikTok. You know what? We should do like a comment of the week just to encourage people to comment on our stuff. So I'll throw one in really quickly. The comment of the week for this week is I posted a short that was Chris talking about how the offense has been really painful to watch for the Steelers. And I titled it, "The Steelers fans deserve an exciting offense," or something to that extent. And the comment of the week was someone replying to that saying, "No, they don't." Um,
I like
uh,
that. That's to the point.
yeah, very simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to go division by division, and for each division, we are going to give you four things. One, our predicted order of finish for the division. Number two, a prediction that we consider to be a lock, and we're going to tally our locks, and we will have some sort of punishment to be named later for the locks that do not come to fruition. The third thing is a narrative that we feel like is not really being talked about, but is important to consider for a team or a player in this division. And then finally, a prediction that we think is unlikely to happen. So we're not actually predicting these things, but we think they're more likely than one may think. So it's something that's really unlikely, probably won't happen, but should be considered more than is probably being considered. So
Yes, I called this the not very likely but plausible possibility.
yeah, oh, that's
Um,
yeah, I like it.
okay.
Um,
Yeah, so we have great things we definitely think are happening, things that probably won't happen, but we wouldn't be surprised if they did happen. Um, and I guess the locks could be things that we think are definitely not happening, right? Technically
Yeah,
speaking. But
yeah. I think I actually have put one now that is in that vein. Um, but yeah, let's get started. I think we'll start with the NFC East. Chris, do you want to give your predicted order of finish of the NFC
not
East?
really. um, yeah, okay. So I mean, it was basically debate between Dallas and Philadelphia for the top. I went with Dallas mostly because I just wanted to change things up. um, I thought that would be surprising, um, but I would not be surprised if Philadelphia was at all surprised if Philadelphia was the number one in that division. But I kind of think Dallas might be number one. Then I have Philly, and then Washington, and then the New York Giants. I cannot see the Giants being good. Um, so
Yeah,
that's my
that's
general order.
well. This isn't going to be exciting for people because that's my order too. But interestingly, the debate that I had, I mean, I did consider putting Philly leading the division, but I actually was really close to putting Washington in number two, having Dallas, Washington, because I think they're going to be a very exciting offense, and I think there's a potential for Philly to fall off a cliff. But
Do you think Jaden Daniels is going to be like this year's C.J. Stroud or something? Like I thought about him being really exciting, and I didn't know if that was plausible, so I left them down at third.
yeah, I'm kind of thinking it. Maybe it's too much because it's like the same team, but I'm thinking of him as like the RG3, like RG3's rookie year. I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
expecting something like that, but I think their defense is going to be really bad and their offense is going to be good. So they'll be like the 2002 Chiefs that will be like about 500 and play really exciting games. That's what I'm expecting out of Washington. So I thought if Philly takes like a big step back, then maybe at like 9-8, Washington could sneak into the second spot.
Yeah, that I could like I kind of wanted to pick Philly to tank this year. I mean, be like unexpected. I mean, not tank, but be unexpectedly bad, given how they finished last year. But I just there's too much talent on that roster. It
Yeah.
seems to me for them to really fall off a cliff. But I mean, who knows?
All right. Do you want to pick your lock, your NFC
Yeah,
East
actually,
lock?
that's on topic. My lock is that Philadelphia will not finish worse than second. um,
Oh, wow.
uh, I wanted them to finish worse than second because I thought that'd be interesting, and based on last year's trends, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to be good.
My lock is probably not that exciting, but I guess that's fair because it's a lock. It's Daniel Jones is playing his last season as the Giants starter. Um, I mainly think that because if he's cut after this year, the Giants will save 22 million, or sorry, they'll save 19 million in cap, and they'll carry a 22 million dead cap hit. Um, Also, interestingly, like in the Giants offseason hard knocks thing, they showed a clip where the Giants were trying very hard to trade with the Patriots for the number 3 pick and draft Drake May, like, which these offseason hard knocks things, I don't know if this is a good idea. like, and then they like try to once the trade doesn't go through. This was the day of the draft, like before the draft, they're trying to trade up to number 3. And the Patriots weren't interested, and then they start like trying to talk themselves into Daniel Jones. I was like, "Is this?" I mean, I don't know if this is. Do you want this stuff coming out? But yeah, I think the Giants will be moving on from him after this year.
I mean, yeah, I feel like teams and players might not want this stuff coming out, but this is what's going to be getting engagement, so I think it's going to come out, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good lock. I wish I had that lock. That feels like a better lock than my Philadelphia lock. But yeah, okay, that's good. And then what do you want to do next? The overlooked narrative or the not so likely
Uh,
but plausible development?
I have overlooked narrative next. What do you want?
Okay, yeah. I think my overlooked narrative was Dallas's defense could be very good.
Hmm.
I think Micah Parsons is just always very good, and I don't know. I think they like you think about Dallas, you think about the offense, you think about Dak Prescott, who I think will be good this year. I mean, he's always pretty good until it counts, and then he's not. Uh, but coming into there's a lot of talk about between him and Jerry Jones right now about a new contract and whatnot. And I think he's going to be motivated to really show up. But I think the defense could be a sort of a wild card for Dallas. So that's my overlooked narrative. Dallas defense could do some serious work for them.
I think that's a good one because I like Mike Zimmer a lot as the defensive coordinator. So I like that one. Um, my overlooked narrative is we should not at all assume that the Eagles' offense is going to look good without Jason Kelsey. Because like Jason Kelsey made a lot of changes at the line. He could be the main reason why the tush push was successful. Like maybe they're not guaranteed 1 yard or 3 yards
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Like,
Yeah, I was going to
uh,
ask. Do you think is tush push gone without Kelsey?
I mean, I feel like if I were like gun to my head, I feel like maybe, yeah. Like I think I would go yes more than no. Uh, so the offense could like really regress. I don't have a ton of faith in Nick Sirianni as an X's and O's guy. Like I think he's kind of a game manager kind of coach. Like not a game manager, a personality manager kind of coach. But he's also really fiery. And it sounds like there were rumors in the offseason that he and Jalen Hurts had some rubbing of the heads. Rubbing of the
Mm.
heads? Is that bump?
Oh yeah,
Like
that's a good
butting of
thing.
the heads is the term I was going to say. Butting of the heads. So I don't know. I just feel like the offense may not look as like the last time the Eagles offense looked awesome was when Shane Steichen was their offensive coordinator and they had Jason Kelsey. So I'm not going to assume that the Eagles are going to have a good offense, even though they have great weapons.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I hope they do because that's what was making me pick them as a lock to not finish first and second. But um, I guess I could be underrating how much Kelsey is was important to that offense. For the not so likely but plausible narrative development or whatever, I have Jaden Daniels winning Offensive Rookie of the Year for
Oh, nice.
Washington. Um, I
I
wouldn't be
I feel
surprised.
like that could happen. I feel like that could because he's gonna have rushing yards that Caleb Williams won't. That could happen.
Yeah, I think right. I just think Caleb Williams, the name, has just gotten so much associated with it through the past maybe 2 or 3 years now, since he exploded in college football. That and being the number one pick, I think that just also kind of
Yeah.
helps the case for Offensive Rookie of the Year if he is even playing at the same level as Jaden Daniels. So I think if it came down to like a tie statistically or roughly, then I think Caleb would win it. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way.
Maybe if one of your like unlikely but plausible bets goes through, it should like eliminate a punishment for a lock. Because
I like that.
I could see this happening. Um, Mine is also Washington Commanders focused. I said Terry McLaurin's going to make an All Pro team. Uh, Basically, kind of going on the same narrative you are that I think Jaden Daniels is going to be good. He's had 1,000 yards the last 4 years, and the year before that he had 919 yards. He's never had like an exceptional quarterback, and he's always been really consistent. I feel like even if Daniels isn't like amazing, he's like new. Teams don't have tape on him. They're and he's since he's a rookie, I feel like he's going to go to his number one guy. So I feel like there's a chance that Terry McLaurin has an awesome season this year.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's a good point that these rookie quarterbacks that come in with a lot of sort of athletic talent, there is not tape on them, and so that is a reason they can excel. That might not carry over to the second season, which is going to bear on some of my other predictions as we get to other divisions here. Um, Anything else to say about the NFC East? Like we didn't say much about what do we want to say about the Giants aside from I mean
I think they're going to really stink. I feel like the
yeah.
Giants, well, that's going to come up in my North thing, but I have three teams that I think are going to be vying for the worst record in the league. Uh, well, I should say four, and the Giants are one of them. I think they're going to be really bad.
Yeah, I guess I have four-ish as well. Yeah, it's hard to see them being good, but I guess stranger things have happened. Um, where do you want to go after the East? Do you want to do the North?
Sure. I can give my order finish for the North. I have Green Bay winning the division. Then I have Detroit, Chicago, and then Minnesota.
Nice order. Wow, me too.
uh,
uh, uh, I wanted to put
last,
Detroit up there at number one, and I strongly considered it, but no, I have this exact same order again.
yeah, I just feel like Detroit is a very trendy pick this year, and I'm not sold. But we'll get to that in just a minute. That in one of my future things. So my lock is that I I could not believe that the over under for the Vikings was 7.5. Uh, I
Is
am
that
going.
current?
Yeah, I checked it yesterday, the day before,
Oh,
on
dang.
on FanDuel. It's 7.5, and I'm going hard under on that one. My lock is that even Kevin O'Connell won't be able to get Sam Darnold anywhere close to the playoffs. So definitely under 7.5. I don't see there's any way that they get to 8 wins. I think it's between them, the Giants, and two other teams we're going to get to as far as who's going to have the worst record in the league. I think they're going to be terrible.
Yeah, uh, I agree that they're going to be bad. Um, I like your lock a lot better than I like my lock. My lock is like way out on a limb, to be honest. But my lock is that Caleb Williams will win Offensive Rookie of the Year, uh, which I do think seems like a good bet. But I would much more I'd be much more comfortable with your lock than my lock here. So But I mean, there's so much going for him, right? How could he not? I mean, he's playing for the Bears, so I guess that's how he could not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do expect. I, I think I expect that.
My narrative that I feel like people are not talking about enough in this division is that Jared Goff is still Jared Goff. I don't know why like so many people are like the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl. It's like, I mean, Jared Goff, we've not that, it's not amazing what he's done and he's kind of resurrected his career, but like I'm going to read off statistics from two different Jared Goff seasons. One of them is 4,575 yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 picks, 7.6 yards per attempt, and a 60.3 QBR. The second one is 4,688 yards, 32 touchdowns, 12 picks, 8.4 yards per attempt, and a 63.6 QBR. The first one was Jared Goff last year. The second one was Jared Goff in 2018. So, like, he's done this before. He's played really well, and then teams have kind of figured out what he's trying to do in the system that he's in, and then he got traded. And people are like, well, he's at a place. Dan Campbell believes in him. He's given him his support. Like, you don't think Sean McVay believed in Jared Goff after 2018? Like, I don't know that I just buy that much. I know Jared Goff wasn't great in the Super Bowl, but he made a Super Bowl. Like, I just don't know that. I'm not saying it's not possible that Jared Goff goes and wins a Super Bowl, but why we are suddenly like ready to put a lot on his shoulders and a lot of belief in him. Like, we've seen this guy for a long time. He can have good years and he can follow it up with bad years. So I'm just not ready to just hitch my wagon to Jared Goff.
Mm, that's compelling. He was really bad in the Super Bowl. Uh, I remember some of those plays being just like, what are we doing here? I mean, I was cheering for him because I didn't want the Patriots to win again, but it was, uh, yeah, that's plausible. My overlooked narrative is not about the Lions; it's about the Packers and that their defense could. I guess this is the same narrative I had about the Cowboys. Their defense could be really good,
Yeah.
and it could carry them a bit. I think they've got a new coordinator, Jeff Hafley, I think. They've got
From
Jair
Boston
Alexander is
College, I think.
awesome cornerback, and now Xavier McKinney at safety. I feel like their defense is going to be able to win games for them. It's not just going to be like fine and the offense will carry them. I think the defense can carry them.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
if
my
that's
that's my
if
narrative.
that's the case, that would be a huge point for Green Bay winning the division. Like, definitely, if that offense can be paired with a good defense, they will be a very good team.
Yeah.
Um, Possibly more on that when we make our playoff predictions. Um, my unlikely but plausible prediction is that Christian Watson of the Packers will have 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns this year. Um, he has not really come close to doing that yet, but last year his first 2 years he struggled with injuries, but the last 3 games he played, he got 186 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is barely over 1,000 yard pace. But I think he's just a dynamic guy. Again, I'm not predicting this to happen, but I think that Christian Watson, if he stays healthy, could really like become a number one wide receiver.
Are you thinking? How confident are you in connection with that? With Love being sort of the guy he appeared to be at the end of last season.
Uh, I I think it's definitely possible. I'm not, as we'll see in like some future stuff. I'm not a huge fan of like quarterback has had one good year, and so I'm going to assume there's a linear progression. I think Love is good, and I think he's good enough to lead a team into the playoffs and potentially deep into the playoffs. But I'm not ready to give him like superstar status.
Yeah, that's where Well, I mean, I might be a little bit more pessimistic than you. I mean, I that's my not very likely but plausible narrative is that he regresses and becomes just sort of like an average quarterback, which is more than the Steelers have. So, like, I'm not saying anything really that bad about him. But I do feel like we haven't seen him be good for long enough for me to be comfortable that he's really the next franchise quarterback for the Packers. I think um, you often do see these kind of flash in the pan seasons, and then once other people have tape on that quarterback, they can figure out what good ways to defend them. And so it's going to be a question of like whether Love can stay ahead of that. Uh, he certainly got he's athletically gifted, so he certainly got the tools. I just we'll see what he makes of them. I wouldn't be surprised if he regresses.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fair, and actually similar to another quarterback thing I will discuss later. But I think what I would say for Love is I'd be surprised if his career is like worse than like Kirk Cousins. I feel like I could see him like that's what I'm anticipating to be like. We're at least getting that level of quarterback, but we will see.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins, solid career. I would like that career.
Yeah.
Good. Anything else about the North?
I don't think so. I just that acknowledging that it seems like a lot of people have the Lions as like a Super Bowl pick or a 1 seed, or and neither of us has them winning the division, which is interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I also do think like Justin Jefferson should have a big year, if only because Minnesota is going to be trailing in a lot of games and they're going to be throwing it a lot.
Yeah,
I
as long
expect
as Sam Darnold can get him the ball.
that's the question, I guess. Yeah.
All right.
But
Do you
the
want
South
to?
next?
Yeah, do the South. You want to give your order for the South?
Yeah, with the caveat that honestly, this division I could see going basically any order. But the order I ended up with, oh man, is New Orleans, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, Carolina.
Oh, we disagree on something for once.
There we
All
go.
right. Well, we just have two teams swapped, but I have Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Carolina,
Yeah,
and
I
I
had that
think
at one point.
for me, interestingly, the two that were tough for me were New Orleans and Tampa. I could see either of those teams winning 10 games, and I could see either of those teams winning 6 games, and I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the reason I had New Orleans there is just because they like barely missed the playoffs last year, and I think they would have been if they had just like not collapsed against the Packers in Week 3. Um, and then I feel like we would be thinking of them better. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right way to make a pick like this. But yeah, Tampa. I don't. Yeah, I'm so unconfident about this division. I would not be surprised if everything was flipped from what I picked, or anyone could finish first here as far as I can tell.
I would be surprised if Carolina did. They're another team I have as like fighting for the number 1 pick, and maybe they'll actually get
Oh,
it
really?
if they get because
I could. This is actually, I mean, to jump around a bit. This is my not so likely but plausible, at least to me, narrative is that Carolina is like in the playoff hunt, basically.
Oh,
Bryce Young did not have a good year, but they have added some weapons. One that I, in particular, am high on. They could finish like second in the division, and I really would not be shocked. I don't know if that'll be good enough for a playoff spot, but I could see it.
wow. Well, I can give you my not so likely but plausible narrative because it's on the similar topic. Mine is Michael Penix will one day be viewed as a genius pick. No, I'm just kidding. That's not even possible. Mine is that the Panthers will be looking for a new coach for the 3rd straight offseason at the end of this year. And that's not just because I think the Panthers are going to be bad, but I also think David Tepper is crazy as their owner. And he's had the team since 2018, and they've had 6 coaches since then. And I think he just has a really short leash for coaches, and I think they're not going to be good. So their coach right now, Dave Canales, he was a Pete Carroll disciple. He jumped on as their strength coach in Pete Carroll's last year at USC. And then Pete Carroll came to the Seattle, and Canales followed him there. And then he left Carroll for 1 year to be the Tampa Bay offensive coordinator, and now he has this job. So, I mean, he's kind of a young guy who's been a coordinator for 1 year. And to me, like, for every Sean McVay, you have like Lane Kiffin on the Raiders, Josh McDaniel on Denver, Adam Gase, Frank Reich, Dennis Allen, Raheem Morris, all these guys that like came as a young coach, maybe even had a little success, but like flamed out in their first like young coaching opportunity. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens to Dave Canales too.
Yeah, I guess we have. I mean, we both have them last, right? But I think
Yeah.
I'm way more. I'd be way less surprised if they were good than you would be. But I admit, like, I don't think much about the NFC South, so that that's probably why this I could see any order of finish here.
I think a lot about David Tepper because he's a major donor at Carnegie Mellon. So I've known his name for
Oh
a long
yeah,
time. The School
wait,
of
isn't the
Business
business
is named
school?
after him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
um, I forgot about that because we can contrast it with Olin at Wash U.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we had things to say about that. But anyway, my lock here, which I skipped over, I I don't like this lock anymore. I said New Orleans won't be eliminated from the playoffs if they are at all until the last week of the regular
Oh man, you were way more bold with your locks than I was. Like,
season. Yeah, well, we're gonna have to consider that when we think through these punishments.
uh, although to be fair, like I was more bold than I thought I was. Like I feel like the Vikings one was like a good lock for me. Like, but mine was more bold than I'd like to be even on this one. Mine was that no team in this division will win a playoff game. Um,
That's
so
quite plausible.
yeah, I hope this is right. um,
I mean, I guess you could imagine some like wild card game where they're playing another not very good team
yeah.
that somehow snuck in.
Well, I mean, the Bucks won a playoff game last year. They beat the Eagles, so
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
could happen.
That's my overlooked narrative. It's related to the Bucks. It's like this. It's basically Baker Mayfield is. I don't know if he's good, but he's serviceable now, and that might they can ride him a bit. I think he can win games for them, which is. It's a weird position to be in where I would like to have Baker Mayfield on my team, but here I am.
Maybe after this year, you'll feel differently.
Yeah, maybe.
My overlooked narrative for this division is that the head coaches in this division are a combined 88 and 142 as head coaches. They have a career winning percentage combined of 38.2%. Like, we have some of the, like, Todd Bowles has coached 104 games and he's 44 and 60, including the playoffs. Dennis Allen somehow has coached 70 games and he's 24 and 46. Dave Canales hasn't coached a game, so he's 0 and 0. But Raheem Morris, who I think is he's the outlier because he coached Tampa when he was really young. Then he went back as a coordinator for a while, and he's just coming back. So maybe he's not as beholden to this record, but he's 21 and 38. So of the three, the best is Todd Bowles with a 426, 42.6% winning percentage. Like, these are not, and they've had like decent sample sizes, and they're not great, which is one reason why it was hard for me to have any faith in, especially Dennis Allen and Todd Bowles coach teams. Like Raheem Morris, that's why I picked Atlanta to win this, because I'm like, at least where Raheem Morris has been, out studying under good coaches and he's come back. So maybe he's learned something. Bill Belichick had a bad first coaching stint, so maybe he's figured it out. But this is not a stellar division of coaches.
Yeah, that's a good point. It seems to be like this kind of division where they're gonna, most of the wins are gonna come against each other, right? They're not gonna get a ton of wins outside of it. Like I don't see anyone in that division having more than like 10 wins at the end of the season. Um, Maybe that should have been my lock. My other stupid New Orleans lock. Whatever. Do we need to do a break before or do you think we can
Yeah,
cram in
we,
the West?
no,
I
we
don't
can
think
do a
we can.
break and then we'll come back and do the NFC West.
All right, sounds good.
And we're back. Um, all right, so move to the NFC West. I guess I'll go first this time. I think you went
Yeah,
first last
good.
time. So my order of finish for the NFC West is San Francisco, Seattle, then the Rams, then Arizona.
Ooh, fun. Uh, I have slightly different. I have San Francisco, the Rams, Seattle, and then Arizona.
This
I'd be curious
honestly,
what made you put Seattle there.
well, part of it was my narrative. Uh, so
Okay.
if we want to jump right to the narrative that we feel like people aren't talking about, it's that the Rams had no first round pick from 2017 to 2023, and they have lost a lot of the stars that were kind of compensating for, like, propping up the fact that they haven't kind of replenished young talent. Aaron Donald's gone now. I think that's going to be a bigger loss than people are thinking. Of course, Jalen Ramsey's gone. They've lost, they kind of had a lot of these star-studded players that they had given up first-round picks for, and though they have had a couple drafts recently where they've had a lot of picks, it's a lot of day three picks that you're hoping to be successful on the team. So like now their stars are kind of Cooper Cup, who was hurt last year. I'm not anticipating him to be hurt this year because it looks like he's been healthy. But Puka Nakua's hurt. Stafford had like a back issue, which always worries me, even though he was really good last year. And then their others, like besides that, is like Tre'Davious White, who the Bills cut, and Kyron Williams, who was like a good back in the second half of last year. I don't know. I just don't see the kind of superstar laden team they had before. And then it makes me wonder, like, if you haven't been stocking the cupboard for so long, like, is there enough depth to carry the day?
That's a pretty plausible case. I mean, in some sense, my overlook that's that's more or less my not so likely but plausible story that the Rams bottom out basically for the kinds of reasons you were just given. I guess you just think it's more likely than I do, but I do think Stafford's getting up there, and he's yeah the back injury and losing Aaron Donald. I do think I didn't remember that Puka Nacua was hurt. Is it a long term thing?
No, I think he's just been like dealing with injury throughout the off season. Like he hasn't.
Okay.
I think he missed a lot of time in camp. I think he's going to be ready to go week one, but he has not been consistently practicing this off season at all.
Okay. Yeah. I probably have a. I mean, I don't know. I have a maybe a flatant sense of how good he is because he was awesome against us last year. But I think maybe him and Cup can, even if Stafford is sort of on the decline, they can carry him a bit. Uh, and I think the offense can still be good. But it wouldn't surprise me if they really drop off. Um, but to get so I'm jumping all over here. But so that was your overlooked narrative, right? That the Rams
Yeah.
have they're getting old basically, and they don't have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of new talent. Um, my overlooked narrative is Seattle. I think basically if their defense improves and becomes just solid, then the offense was pretty good, not wonderful, but they could be in the wild card discussion. I think if basically if the defense improves from last year and the offense stays the same. It's maybe not that bold, but
No, I think that's fair. I think it is interesting because everybody seems to like have a team in this division that they're really excited about, and to me, I don't really feel like I have one. Like so, my going up to our locks now. My lock is that every team loses at least two games in the division. I think this is going to be like a styles makes fights kind of division, which it is often. Like the teams lose to each other a lot. I don't know who I love in this division, which is why I ended up like with a kind of boring order. I feel like ultimately I wasn't satisfied with any order I had. I feel like I see a lot of holes in all of the teams, and I guess San Francisco is just the most complete one, so I picked them to win the division. But I don't know. This was a weird one for me. I could see a lot of things happening in this division.
Do you think it's likely that San Francisco, like how likely is it that San Francisco doesn't win the division in your eyes?
I mean, I think it could definitely happen, which could lead to my my unlikely but plausible prediction.
Uh, okay. I think maybe you and I have different opinions about San Francisco then, because
Oh,
I have as a lock that they're going to win at least 11 games.
oh,
Um, I feel like they were really good last year, aside from that little stretch there. But and they were close to winning the Super Bowl, right? So
yeah, they were.
uh, I think if I don't know, I think that I mean, I guess there's the Super Bowl hangover, and oddly, it does seem to be at least a trend. Whether there's a causal mechanism there, I don't know, but that's something we should talk about sometime.
Yeah,
But I feel like I don't see a lot of weaknesses in San Francisco, so it's gonna be good.
yeah. So then, to my unlikely but plausible prediction is that the 49ers miss the playoffs. Uh, I have two teams in the NFC that I don't like. I'm not predicting them to bottom out, but I feel like one of the two will have a year from hell, and it's the Eagles or the 49ers. I think I just feel like, they Christian McCaffrey already has the calf issue. They had Trent Williams hold out. He didn't participate in camp. He's just come back. Ayuk missed camp. Hofunga is coming back from a torn ACL. We don't know how effective he'll be. Kittle is often nicked up, although to his credit, he doesn't often miss a lot of time. Debo Samuel is often nicked up. Like, I just feel like there could be a situation where they have one or two injuries, especially, or they have a couple guys that aren't playing well because like they weren't in camp. And the other thing is that when they played, the Niners were kind of like, to me, Miami light in that like Miami did not look good against good teams. The Niners, they lost to like good defenses they played to. Like they lost to Cleveland. They got shellacked by Baltimore. Uh, are we like sure that Purdy isn't Tua? Like, are we sure? Like, so I just could see. I'm not predicting it. I predicted them to win the division, but I don't know. I wish I was bold enough to like predict one of the Eagles or the Niners to bottom out because they both kind of have that stench to me.
Hmm. I feel, yeah, okay. I mean, it's a good question. Is Purdy just do? I mean, I feel like I think like he's better, but not substantially better. So maybe, yeah, maybe you're. I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Purdy's always just the kind of something about his personality. Maybe makes me think he's not that good. uh, but like watching him play, even the way he moves around. I think I've mentioned this before. The way he moves around makes me think he can't be that good, and then he does things that actually are pretty good. So I don't know. I don't think of him as like this, the biggest strength of that team, I guess. But I think he's good enough, and the rest of the team around him is really good too.
Yeah. I feel like I put him in the camp of like, so for me, this is true of like Tua, Purdy. It was true of like Ryan Tannehill. It's true to a slightly lesser degree to me of like Lamar Jackson. They're just all the quarterbacks like when we've got them in 3rd and 9, I'm feeling all right. Like I'm not terrified, Like you stop the first down run and suddenly you're like, okay, maybe we're gonna get off the field here. I feel
Yeah,
like those quarterbacks I kind of put in a similar boat. Again, Lamar Jackson to a lesser degree, but still similar.
yeah. Yeah. I might disagree. I don't think Jackson's really in that category, except when he plays teams like the Chiefs and the Steelers, maybe, which
Yeah,
I have
I'm
more
thinking
my.
particularly from a Chiefs perspective in that this one. Like, I told you this. Did we say this on the podcast, or I think I told you this off the podcast that I went to a game in Baltimore and they were in the red zone and they had a third and some long distance, and
Oh,
there was a fan in my section who yelled like, "Just kick the field goal! Lamar's not going to do this. Just kick the field goal!" And Lamar promptly threw a pick to Tyrann Mathieu in the end zone. It was a wonderful moment. Although we lost that game, it's the only time we've lost to Lamar. It was not fun being there for that, but that moment was hilarious. I was laughing so hard.
yeah, having a video of that. We didn't talk about this, I think, off the air, but having a video of that would be amazing. That would go viral, I think.
Yeah, that was so funny. And the guy was like, "I told you!" Like, he threw the pick. It was very funny.
Um, all right, to the AFC now.
Yeah, let's do the AFC East.
Okay, so I'll go first this time.
Hmm.
Um, I have Buffalo, Miami, New York Jets, New England.
Okay. I have New York Jets,
Ooh,
Buffalo, Miami, New England.
wow. Is this like? Do you think? Have you rethought your Aaron Rodgers skepticism?
No, I remain skeptical of Aaron Rodgers. I just think the rest of the team around him is better than. I think Miami and Buffalo both got worse this offseason.
Hmm.
And I kind of am predicting like all three of these teams to be around 10 wins. And I just think that there's always like some degree of new division winners. So since I had them all kind of equal, I did what I wasn't bold enough to do with the NFC West, and I decided to choose a different winner. So I think I love the Jets defense. I think they have enough weapons on offense. I like Brees Hall. I like Garrett Wilson. I think they went 7-10 with like one of the worst quarterback situations I've ever seen. So like
Yeah,
if Aaron Rodgers can just be like an above average quarterback, I think they'll win 10 games.
that's a good argument. It makes me regret putting them third, but whatever. That's what I did, so I'm sticking to it. Yeah, I okay. That's fair. I think I was well. Okay, this is getting into my narratives and um, my locks and stuff like that. But I had Buffalo first just because I still think they have the best quarterback in that division. Um, um, and I'm not confident that Aaron Rodgers is going to be healthy for the whole year anyway. So I could see them just falling off the cliff again when he's done for the year in week 3 or whatever. Um, and the only thing else that I had to say about Buffalo was that I had some really good buffalo wings at Buffs in Buffalo over the summer, or Duffs, yeah,
Duffs,
Duffs,
yeah.
not Buffs. But they were, I think, in my ranking of buffalo wings, they might be like second or third all time. But they know what they're doing there, and so they deserve to win some because of the good wings they make.
Um, all right.
Do
So what do you?
locks for this one?
Yeah.
My lock is that New England does not win more than 5 games. Uh, I I don't see it happening. Maybe they surprise me, but I cannot see what do they have going for them really? I'm not sure.
Not well. I have a very similar lock. Mine is that the Patriots pick in the top five. Yeah, I think this is not. I mean, and it's not even just that they're bad because they are bad, but it's also that like when you have your coach saying things like Drake May outplayed Jacoby Brissett in the offseason, but we're starting Jacoby Brissett week 1. It's just like that's not the kind of thing that you want to hear. Like I don't know. That just doesn't seem
Not
to be
the
a way
like
to
the
like get
players
the
don't want
team
to hear
behind you.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, who does want to hear that? I don't know. Right? Why are you saying that? I don't. That's very
Basically, like
confusing.
to me, what that's saying is that our team sucks so bad that even though our rookie is the best choice, I don't want to put him in this situation. Like that's what it means to me.
That does that's a reading of why you would do that. But then there's a question of why you would say that. So I don't. Yeah. Um, okay, so that's the lock. Similar locks, I guess. Then the overlooked narrative. Uh, I'm kind of regretting this after the case you made about the Jets, but I was my narrative was that it wasn't obvious to me that Miami was definitely worse than Buffalo. Buffalo having regressed, it looks like, in terms of their talent this offseason at least. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins win the division. Um, I mean, usually they're hot at the beginning and they fade down the stretch, and probably that'll happen again. But maybe they'll figure out how to not fade eventually, and then uh, win the division handily. So,
My overlooked narrative is we literally just saw last year what happened even to Patrick Mahomes when he had no good pass catchers. So why are we assuming that the Bills' passing offense is going to be good this year? Like their number one wide receiver is Khalil Shakir. Their number two, I guess we would argue, is Keon Coleman, the rookie, who is a great contested catch guy, but couldn't separate in college. So I'm not expecting him to separate in the NFL. Now, Josh Allen might be willing to throw jump balls, and it seems like he's really good at catching jump balls. So maybe that'll work. Then they have Curtis Samuel, whose best year was in 2020 when he was with the Commanders, I believe, at that time. Their tight ends, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox together. Kincaid had like 673 yards last year. Then they have MVS, who, like, we saw what happened with him in Kansas City, and Mac Hollins. Like, I mean, this is not a stellar group. And with Patrick Mahomes, who I feel like can handle things better than almost anyone, he struggled with at times with his receiving core. So I'm just not kind of penciling in Josh Allen for having a good year this year. And last year's Chiefs were carried by the defense, and the Bills have suffered a ton of losses on defense. Like, this is not a defense that's going to carry a team. So I'm just, I picked them to finish second in the division. I think I would probably pick them to make the playoffs or at least be close, but I don't think this is our like 11, 12 win Bills team. Like, I think it's going to be a little harder of a year for them.
maybe like more 9 or 10 wins, or even less.
Yeah, it's hard for
Yeah.
me to pick Josh Allen getting fewer than 9 wins. Like, I think they'll have a winning record, but I think, last year, I think they were 6-6 at one point and then had to
Oh,
win
really?
out. Yeah, I think they won
I
their
remember
last
that.
5 games. Like, I just, I'm not, I feel like most of my narrative things are about like, are spreading negativity, but I'm just not confident. Like, are we sure? I think we're a little too sure as a football watching community that the Bills are going to be good. At the very least, that Josh Allen will have a good year because he's in a tough spot. He's in a really, I don't think it has anything to do with his talent. I just think he's in a really tough spot.
Yeah, I guess it'll be a good test of whether he's the kind of quarterback that can basically just put the team on his back for a year,
Yeah.
um, and will them to the playoffs. But but you're right that they've in some sense missed a good window here, and it's hard to see them matching what they've done recently. Um, Not so likely, but plausible. I just have Aaron Rodgers gets injured in week one again
I
and is out for the year.
mean,
Uh,
it could
he's
happen.
40, right? Like, what? I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like it could happen. And he had I think he put it in, like, he had a lot of work in training camp, right? So, at least that's what I had heard. So, I don't know.
And I don't know if this is true or not, but the MetLife Field has a reputation of causing injuries. So
Yeah,
he's going to be playing 8 games. He won't be playing there week one though. I think he's in San Francisco. But uh, yeah,
that'll be fun.
I could see that as that's a good, not very likely but plausible. Mine, not very likely but plausible scenario is that the Dolphins finish under 500. Uh, teams seem to understand how to play Tua. It's possible that they're kind of growing in their ability to predict and take away what he likes to do. They also, a lot of key players like Christian Wilkins and Andrew Van Ginkel are gone. Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are both coming back from injuries. I think it's an Achilles and an ACL, respectively. Jalen Ramsey's turning 30. They lost Xavier Howard, even though he was pretty bad last year and the year before. So, like, I just, they don't beat good teams. Is it possible that if they slip a little bit, that I know they were 11-6 last year, so it's a bit of a drop to go to under 500, but that's why I'm not predicting it. But I think it's plausible.
Hmm. I mean, do you think that, in your opinion, are the Jets like they're winning this division because everyone else is not very good, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, I really do think like every team in this division is like a 9 or 10 win team. I definitely think the Jets' ceiling is the highest. Like they're just a complete football team. Like I think they are what Buffalo was like 2 years ago. It's just the question of how good is Aaron Rodgers now. It's been a couple years since we've seen him play really well, but I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is even Kirk Cousins, I keep bringing up Kirk Cousins as
True.
comparisons, but like that's
He's like the
fine, right?
barometer, right? Like
Yeah,
when you have a good team, if you can have a Kirk Cousins, then you're going to be dangerous.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I maybe underrated them in my ranking, but alas, it's fixed. Um, Anything more to say about the East?
I don't think so. Let's do the North.
That's a
Um,
fun one. You want to go?
yeah, I really, really, I feel like I just kind of like wussed out on my ranking. Like I really wanted to be like clever with this one, but I ended up going Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, Browns. Uh, I wanted to do. I just wasn't bold enough to put the Steelers up there. I'm terrified of Joe Burrow's wrist. Uh, I I don't know, and I don't know what to make. I mean, Deshaun Watson. I'm just not going. I'm not going to hitch my wagon to Deshaun Watson. Like, not in any way. Like I don't believe in him. If anyone like really strongly believes in Kodama, I feel like Deshaun Watson is the guy. Like, wow, he looks so bad. Like, what happened?
Yeah, I think there's like a Deshaun Watson's the one where like even if the evidence suggested he was going to be good, it's just like a as a moral, I feel morally compelled not to pick them to be good. And I'm gonna as long as there is any hope of them not being good, I'm gonna believe that they're not gonna be good. So I have them last as well, but I have Baltimore, Cincy, and Pittsburgh in that order above them. Um, I like that you picked Pittsburgh above Cincinnati. Uh, I I honestly think it's just my hatred of Deshaun Watson that kept me from putting Pittsburgh in last place, and my Steelers fandom. But uh, well, there's a couple things maybe that kept me from putting them in last place, but I'm not super optimistic about the Steelers this season. What's your lock for this one?
My lock is that the Steelers get 50 sacks this year. Uh, they had 47 last year. They have so many good pass rushers. Oh God, that's funny. Cousin Sal on the Bill Simmons podcast always talks about how Chris Collinsworth says pass rush. Like I want to listen for it tonight to see if it comes up, but and I just said pass rush. But they have very good pass rushers. They did not hold leads last year, and they still got 47 sacks. I think this is going to be like. I am a firm believer in Nick Herbig. I think he's an awesome third edge. Highsmith and Watt, if they're healthy, and then Herbig's rotating in, and then the guy whose name I keep forgetting from Kansas, um,
Kyron Johnson.
Kyron Johnson. Kyron Johnson, like I didn't see like a ton of awesome play, but like he looks like he's got bend around the edge. Like I don't know. I watching their preseason film, I loved their edge rushers. I like Keanu Benton a lot. I like Larry Ogunjobi. I think these guys are going to cause a lot of problems. So if the Steelers get leads, I think this is like low key one of the best defenses in the league. I think this will be like a easily top 5 defense, and they might be the best defense in the league by the end of the year if everyone stays
That's
healthy.
cool. I do have that as my overlooked narrative. I think our defense will be our strength, and if we finish better than third, it's going to be because of our defense. I have them being maybe top five. You sound like you're more confident than I am, but yeah, I guess we do agree on the Steelers defense being fun this year. I think you're right. We should be able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback with the line and the linebackers as they are. Uh, and maybe that'll just mask the potential deficiencies we have in so like the slot cornerback. um, looks like it might be Beanie Bishop. And Tomlin was asked, "What did he do to earn the role?" And he said, "Well, nothing really."
He said that.
So that's well, he said, "I don't know that he's earned it yet, but that's just how this goes. You're building a roster." um,
Oh my god, that's amazing.
yeah, yeah. There's been some strange, like unusual. Yeah, like Roman Wilson actually might play this week, but having not basically participated in training camp almost at all, which is also very surprising for a Tomlin team. Anyway, I jumped around again because you mentioned your lock being basically high on the Steelers defense. I think that was my overlooked narrative. My lock was Baltimore having a top five offense. It's maybe a little bit bolder than the Steelers getting 50 sacks, but maybe not. I mean, Baltimore. I feel like they'll be good, and I have a lot of jealousy about Lamar Jackson and what he can do when he's not playing certain teams, and I think he's going to make them dangerous again.
So my overlooked narrative is that Derrick Henry is 30 and was let go by his prior team. And I went through some like famous running. I basically went to the Pro Football Focus, Pro Football Reference Hall of Fame monitor and like went down the list from the top and picked out the running backs that moved teams. And I picked that they had to at least be 28 years old when they move teams. Because if you like move at 25, then like you'll probably have good seasons with your later team. And so then I picked out their best seasons with their second team. And I won't read like all the stats, but at least I can go through the yards per carry for everybody. So Emmitt Smith, 3.5 yards a carry. LaDainian Tomlinson, 4.2. OJ Simpson, 3.7 yards per carry. Eric Dickerson, 4.3. Adrian Peterson, 4.2. Edgerrin James, 3.8. Thurman Thomas had 4.9 yards per carry, but he had a total of 136 yards. So, not really. Franco Harris, 2.5 yards per carry. Marcus Allen, 4.3. Earl Campbell, 4.1. Frank Gore, 3.9. Like, these Hall of Fame running backs become, like, very average running backs when later in their career their team moves on from them and they go to another team. And like some people, like Eric Dickerson actually had a really good year, but he was also the one that was 28. He got 4.3 yards per carry, but he had 1659 yards and 14 touchdowns when he went to the Colts. But like running backs aren't, they kind of have these like slog it out years where most of these guys are getting like 900 yards, 890 yards, maybe 1200 yards, but they're getting 3.8 yards per carry. So I just think that Derrick Henry is not the Derrick Henry he used to be, and I'm sure he'll be fine statistically, but I don't know that he's going to be like dynamic.
I can totally be on board with that. In thinking Baltimore is going to be good with the top five offense, it's not because of Derrick Henry, it's because of Lamar Jackson, really. But I agree. I'm not. We also we've played pretty well against Derrick Henry. Like, I guess that's just personally the Steelers have, but I don't think him being on their offense is really the worry for me. I think they're just going to be good in other ways.
Yeah,
I think
and the
Lamar
other
Jackson's
thing
going to be really
about
motivated.
the other thing about Derrick Henry that I think is going to be interesting is like my understanding of his play style is that he's really good going downhill. Like he becomes when he gets ahead of steam is when he's really dangerous. When the Chiefs have had success, it's by hitting him in the backfield and getting his knees out from under him before he can get moving. But the Ravens like to run a lot of this like zone read where you're just kind of like the back is stationary, there's a mesh point, like is he going to get it? Then he has to get moving. It's not like he's like taking the ball from like a single back position with the quarterback under the center. Like Lamar Jackson doesn't operate that way. He operates out of the gun. So it also makes me wonder, like, is the Ravens' style of run game conducive to what Derrick Henry is good at? I'm not sure.
That's a really cool analysis. I hadn't thought about that. But you're right that I think of him as like sort of the downhill punishing runner. Surely they've thought about this, right? I don't
I
know
would
what
imagine.
uh, I don't know, and the fact that they still wanted him, I guess, is I don't know some evidence that they're thinking about something that we're not thinking about here. But that does seem like an extra sort of reason to be skeptical about
I
the year he's going to have.
I will say that aesthetically, Derrick Henry is a Raven. Like, man, he's gonna look good in that uniform.
Yeah, with especially like the all black one, I'm not gonna like that. I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah,
be. It's gonna remind me of sometimes when they wear those all black, I get scared. I was like,
especially if
they
like,
look like they're gonna hurt us. Like,
yeah, like Ray Lewis. If he had a visor, like, oh my god, the
yeah,
visor on the all black is that's
or
terrifying.
Suggs too with the yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, Suggs with a visor looked like an alien.
yeah.
Like actually. Oh.
Um, did the lock, did the overlook narrative. So the not so likely but plausible narrative was that the maybe this is more likely than I'm giving it credit for. The Bengals missed the playoffs. Um, Mixon's gone, Boyd's gone, and Burrow's still got this wrist issue that might not be gone. I just like it doesn't add up very well when you have all those concerns.
And Jamar Chase
And
still isn't practicing, right? Did he
oh,
practice yet?
I thought he practiced
Oh, okay.
yesterday or today, um, but yeah, it'd be nice if that was still a problem. I don't know.
Yeah, I was hoping he'd hold out for the Chiefs game. That's too bad.
Yeah,
My unlikely but plausible scenario is that the Browns will move on from Watson as a starter and either eat 200 million of dead cap or keep him as the most expensive backup in NFL history, getting 72.93 million for the next 2 years. I I don't think it's gonna happen, but I think it's getting embarrassing. Like if he, when you have a situation, I know like people keep citing the fact that Deshaun Watson was 5-1 with the Browns last year, and it's like he was, but it did not look good. And then when like Joe Flacco looks good in your offense, like a backup Joe Flacco who then went to be a backup elsewhere, I don't know. I just think that NFL owners are prideful people. They have put together a team that, aside from their quarterback, looks like it can contend. Like, I think it's embarrassing. I think Jimmy Haslam's going to get annoyed if Deshaun Watson looks this bad, and he's already done something unorthodox in fully guaranteeing a contract. And we've seen Denver get impatient with Russell Wilson and pay him a lot of money to go away. And I'm not predicting it to happen, but I think it could. I think it could happen. It's not good if he keeps playing like he's been playing.
hmm I mean, you got to think the rest of the team too is there's going to be pressure from them, like the defense being very good and having other pieces on offense. And if it's
You're
just
gonna
Watson that's like
waste
holding them
Miles
back,
Garrett? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you can see it. There's pressure from both, from like all over basically to move on from him if he keeps sucking. Um, Good, yeah. I don't have anything more to say about Cleveland. I just wrote I don't like them. That's my analysis. They're the team that I don't. I mean, I don't like losing to anybody, especially like in the division. But like Cleveland is by far the worst to lose to. Like I can stomach Baltimore, Cincinnati. They're better than us, so I can understand it. But Cleveland, they're just nope. Yeah, I don't like that. To the south.
Yeah. Um, what do you have for order of finish in the South?
Uh, there's a little. I feel pretty good about the first pick, and then the next three I could see going in different orders. But um, I have Houston, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Indianapolis.
Oh wow, I had Houston, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Tennessee. Tennessee is another team that it's hard. I I could see the Jags and Colts being anywhere between each of those teams. I could see winning as many as 11 games and winning as few as like 7. Tennessee, I have like a similar range, but a little lower. I think it's like the upper limit is 9 and the lower limit's like 5. Uh,
Yeah, I might be biased about Indianapolis, but I have no confidence in Anthony Richardson. Having him seen, I saw him play in person
oh,
here
that's right.
at UF, and it was not
That's right.
promising. Um, that's actually my lock. It's just it's kind of vague, but I feel like we'll be able to tell if this is true or not. I said Anthony Richardson will not be good. Uh, I just don't have, I don't. I don't think I've ever seen him do things. I mean, yes, he's very athletic and he can make cool plays, but I don't think he has the sort of quick decision making skills that you need at the quarterback position. Um, I think he's going to struggle.
I feel like this may be like the boldest I went with one of my locks. I'm regretting a little bit making this a lock, but I said Stephon Diggs is not going to get 1,000 yards receiving this year. Um,
Mm,
I felt like he was slowing down with Buffalo. It doesn't help that after I wrote this prediction down yesterday, I read a bunch of quotes that Stephon Diggs had about like everyone's doubting him and they think, "What do you think? I forgot how to play football last year." And I'm like, "Yikes!" But you know what? I made the prediction. I also think Nico Collins and Tank Dell are going to be the 1-2. And Nico Collins already had like 1,200 receiving yards last
mm,
year. Tank Dell is like a known favorite of CJ Stroud. They have rapport with him. Uh, I think a lot of people have insinuated that when the Bills' offense got off schedule, it was because Josh Allen was trying to force the ball to Diggs to meet his demands for the ball. So I think they'll get tired of that in Houston if that happens. And so I feel like if I'm thinking Nico Collins and Tank Dell are like the 2,000 yard receivers, I'm not expecting them to have a third one. So that's where I
yeah.
figure that Diggs will take a step down and not quite get there.
You know, yeah, it would be strange to have 3,000 yard receivers, I guess. um, I'd be curious. I am curious to see how their offense looks this year. That's one of the things I'm sort of most excited about. That's not related to the teams that I care more about. Like I don't really care about Houston as a team itself, but seeing what CJ Stroud is like this year um, will be fun. Mm. Actually, that's my not so likely but plausible narrative here is that Stroud regresses, just because it's another one of those like looked amazing as a rookie, and then now there's tape on him, and maybe people have figured some things out in year two. I don't really expect that to happen. I think Stroud's going to be good, but I wouldn't be too surprised if he's not as good as he was last year.
Was that was your not so likely but plausible, or that was your
Yeah,
narrative?
that was
Hmm.
my not so
Hmm.
plausible. Yeah.
So my narrative, or should I do my not so likely but plausible?
Yeah, I went out of order, so whatever.
Well, I'll do my narrative because it's the same thing. So my narrative was that I think people aren't considering enough is that teams have tape now on Stroud, Slowick, and what they want to do, and the Texans are going to be good, but I feel like too many people are assuming like a linear ascent for CJ Stroud. Like there's a lot of Stroud for MVP buzz. And like we know teams are going to adjust, and so it's really going to depend on how good their second punch is. Now, Mahomes had to develop a short passing game. Uh, just for comparison, so Stroud had 4,108 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 5 picks last year. So not MVP numbers by any stretch. Uh, I then went to Mahomes after he had his 5,000 yard, 50 touchdown season. The next year he was 4,031 yards and 26 touchdowns. Now he missed a couple games, but his yards per game went from 318 to 287. Lamar Jackson, when he won his first MVP, threw for 3,127 and 36 touchdowns. The next year, he was 2,757 and 26 touchdowns. His yards per game went from 208 to 183.8. So, like, I'm not. CJ Stroud is going to be good, but I don't know why people are like, oh, he's going to throw for 4,700 yards this year, or he's going to win MVP. Like, I feel like we should expect a step back, even if he plays well.
Mhm. That's compelling. And actually, as I look at this, I have two not so likely but plausible narratives and no overlooked narratives. So I think I'll just make my overlooked narrative the one I just gave you about Stroud regressing, um, because it does feel, yeah, that's um, especially those stats you just rattled off there, right? All those like stellar seasons followed by a sorry. We're
We're
back
back.
from an inadvertent break. Um,
I guess
we're
Zoom wouldn't take this CJ Stroud slander.
Yeah, it was not happy with us. Um, well, we'll see. Maybe it was deservedly so. Maybe we should stop slandering Stroud. Do we have more to say about the? Yeah, we had a not so likely of a plausible narrative still, right?
Yeah.
Or development. Mine, I have a feeling we're going to diverge here. Mine is that the Titans make a playoff push. I feel like I don't really have a lot of data for this, but I think Will Levis could improve in year two, and they've got some pieces there. Calvin Ridley, I mean, who knows? Uh, but I kind of feel like they might be surprisingly better than ex expected.
Mine, I guess ours would go together. My unlikely but plausible narrative is, or prediction is that the Texans will not win the division. Uh, I Jacksonville and Indy were both only one game behind the Texans last year. They were both 9-8, and the
Surprising.
Texans were 10-7. The Texans actually, I had forgotten this, but they had to win Week 18 at Indy to win the division. That was like a game for the division. So
Mm.
this was actually really tight last year, and to me, Jacksonville kind of feels like one of those teams that like everyone was on last year and they disappointed. They started 8-3 and then they disappointed the rest of the year. And it's kind of the same team, but everyone's kind of out on them now. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know the things that people believed in last year. I'm not sure why not. Like, they lost Calvin Ridley, but it really sounds like Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be a good rookie wide receiver. Maybe not so much his first year, but which is, I guess, what we care about right now. But I was listening to Van Lathan, who comes on the Bill Simmons podcast. He's a big LSU fan. And he liked Brian Thomas Jr. almost like more than Malik Neighbors. He was like, he's the kind of unsung guy on LSU. So I just feel like Jacksonville might be a little like I think we're all kind of off of Jacksonville too much for some reason,
Mm.
even though they're kind of the same as last year. So, I mean, like I said, still predicting the Texans to win the division, but I think this is not as much of a done deal as people think.
Yeah, it's interesting that I had forgotten that it was that close last year. Because I guess you just think about the standings at the end of the year and forget what had to happen to get there. But I'm kind of I mean, I guess my take on Jacksonville is like, is Trevor Lawrence like, if this is as good as he's going to get, I'm not that impressed, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's solid, right? But it's not. I don't not the kind of play that's leading me to pick him to win the division.
yeah. Well, the other thing I forgot to mention in this was that we always see a bump, right, when you go from coaching that was like when you have a new coach, part of it is like they're a new coach and everyone's excited. Like Brian Daboll in the New York, like I'm not saying D'Amico Ryans won't be a good coach, but like we've seen 1 year. Like it's possible that this was like his first year, everyone getting used to him as a coach, and then we'll see. I mean, Brian Daboll now might get fired after this year in New York after being coach of the year 2 years ago. So
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's fair. Um, I guess I'm putting a lot on Trevor Lawrence, just like being who we think he is, basically. Um, that was. Do you want to do the West?
let's
Best
do
for
the
last.
West. Yeah. Um,
This. You want to go ahead?
well, I feel like this one is not that surprising. I have the Chiefs, then the Chargers, then the Raiders, then the Broncos.
Okay. There's one surprising thing there. I have Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders.
Oh,
What
well,
what makes
as
you go Raiders over Broncos?
let me see if this has anything to do with one of my later ones. No, it doesn't. Um, I think the Broncos are going to be terrible. I don't think. I have zero belief in Bo Nix. Now, I think if anyone can take a quarterback like Bo Nix and make him competent, it's Sean Payton, because I think what Sean Payton's going to do with Bo Nix is what he did with Drew Brees the last couple years of his career, like short passing game, controlled. But like this is Bo Nix. This isn't Drew Brees. So, and I'm colored by the fact that like I remember Bo Nix when he was at Auburn and he was so bad. Like he's had one good year in college and it was in Oregon with like a really structured offense, which he'll get in the pros. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know. And I also don't know like we talked about this a little earlier, like with people that their one championship is doing a lot, carrying a lot of weight. Like I feel like Sean Payton's one championship now is carrying a lot of weight. Like I don't know that I think of him the same way I did in like 2010, 2011. Like I'm not sure that I'm just going to be like, oh, because Sean Payton's coaching that team, they're going to be good. You know, I just don't see a lot of talent on that team. I think they're going to really struggle to score points. And they've lost, like Justin Simmons to me was like an awesome safety. He was one of the guys I liked playing against least on Denver. It's easier to throw away from like Pat Surtain, a corner, than Justin Simmons. Like, I don't know. I'm just not, there's not a lot about Denver that scares me this year.
Defense isn't scary. Offense is not scary. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving Peyton too much credit. I mean, he's never had a terrible record though, right? Like his worst record I think is 7-9.
Yeah.
So I mean, and granted he had Breeze for a long time, so that helps. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like he'll make him competent, right? Not competent, but like serviceable enough to be better than the Raiders, who have like the worst quarterback situation in the league, probably. So.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I think the difference with me is like there's one thing I can point to the Raiders doing really well is they have an awesome pass rush, and I hate playing against their pass rush.
Yeah,
I think their
Max
defense will be
scary.
stingy. Yeah, so I'm not predicting the Raiders to be any good either. I mean that'll come with my later prediction.
Okay.
Uh,
What do you want to
so
lock?
yeah, my lock is that the Chiefs are going to have the division clinched before they play the Steelers on Christmas.
Oh, I have that locked too. What? Yeah. I was, in fact, it was somewhat hopeful that they wouldn't actually have a lot riding on that Steelers game, but probably they will with non-division standings, whatnot. But yes, uh, I thought about say maybe picking the Chiefs to have at least 12 wins, but I thought, let's just like the win totals. I feel like they always are harder to get to than you think they're going to be to get to.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs end up with like 11-6 or something again. But I do kind of expect them to be 12-5 or better. But yes, I have the same lock there. That by the time they play the Steelers, there's nothing left in the division to worry about.
And then I guess we'll get to that in a minute. I have something about the records being hard to get to, but my narrative that I feel like people are not talking enough about is that the Chargers roster is not good. Like, I think people are expecting them to do really well because Jim Harbaugh is their coach and he turns teams around. And like, I've been on this podcast saying that I think they're going to be a lot more competent and I think they'll be good quickly. And I'm expecting that then Harbaugh will flame out after a couple of years. But like the 49ers were a good team when he turned them around. Like they had good pieces. The Chargers just had to like fire sale, like their wide receiver group. We were talking about the Bills group, like Joshua Palmer, Quentin Johnson, DJ Chark, and Lad McConkey are their best wide receivers. Lad McConkey was like a good slot wide receiver from Georgia, but he's been hurt already, and he has a long injury history going back into high school. Joshua Palmer, like he caught a big touchdown pass against us a couple years ago. I remember that. Quentin Johnson dropped a lot of passes. I know he just had a bad rookie year, so I'm not going to completely term him a bust, but it's not looking great. DJ Chark has bounced around. And then when we look on defense, like Joey Bosa is hurt all the time. He's played 14 games in the last 2 seasons combined. Khalil Mack, like everyone talks about his resurgent 17 sack year last year. But 6 of his sacks came in one game where Aiden O'Connell was just holding onto the ball and he was destroying the Raiders' tackle. And then he had 8 games with 0 sacks last year. The last time he had double-digit sacks before last year was 2018. Like I think last year was a little more of an aberration. I think Khalil Mack is a little over the hill. Like I just don't know. their defensive backfield is the only unit on this team that I feel like has good players. Like Asante Samuel Jr. is a good corner. Derwin James is a good, really good safety, but he also has kind of slowed down. He's had a couple injuries. So I don't know. I just like it's not. They lost Keenan Allen. It's not like a stacked roster. Their interior offensive line is not very good. I don't know. Like Jim Harbaugh might do Jim Harbaugh things, but it might be like, oh wow, he did a great job. He got them to 8 wins. You know.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of think their pass rush is better than you're giving it credit for, but maybe that's again me thinking more of Khalil Mack than I should be. But, I do think okay. That that was your overlooked narrative, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes me wonder about my not so likely but plausible narrative, but my overlooked narrative uh, is that the Chiefs might struggle early, which is partly why I didn't want to have the lock be they get to 12 wins. I think, as we kind of talked about last week, the number two cornerback being up in the air, and then Hollywood Brown being injured for the start of the season here, I feel like they could start slow, and then once things are settled, once Brown's back and they presumably get the number two cornerback spot figured out, I think they could really start cruising. But I could see it being a sort of slow start to the year. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens win tonight. I mean, I would be surprised actually. I wouldn't be very surprised. I mean, Mahomes is always so good in the first game of the season, so I expect he'll be right there again. But I do feel like they could. I feel like they'll be better later in the year than they will be earlier in the year.
Yeah. I mean, I think weirdly, besides last year, well, even maybe last year, the Chiefs seem to like be very good in September, and then very good in like December, January, and like especially like October and maybe early November. That's where like the lull hits. um,
But you
but
and so
yeah,
you do you expect them to start fast again? Like come out with a couple like 3 or 4 wins in first month?
I do, and this kind of dovetails into. I'm not making this my unlikely but plausible prediction, but I wrote it down and really thought about it. I was gonna say that the Chiefs go 17-0. That was
Oh
gonna be
wow.
my unlikely but plausible. I think this is the best team that Patrick Mahomes has had. I think the defense isn't going to be as good as last year, but the defense is still going to be like a top 10 unit, and the offense is going to be back to what it was, is what I think. So, but going based on, what you said as far as how these win totals are a lot harder to get to, and plus, like, Mahomes has only crossed, done more than 12 wins, I think twice. I think he went 14-2 in 2020 and then sat out the last game, and then we went 14-3 2022. Besides that, he's done 12 every year except last year where he won 11.
Yeah.
So, well, he actually only won 10. The last game we won was with our backups. So I don't, I just think it's too hard, and Andy Reid doesn't show his stuff all the time. So I even removed that from my unlikely but plausible. And I changed it to no other team in this division wins 8 games. Um, I have it like I just don't.
That's not even that
Again,
unlikely to me. Yeah.
well, I think people would think so because everyone, like a lot of people, think the Chargers are gonna like be a wild card team.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of belief in Harbaugh. I think it's not shocking that the Broncos and Raiders wouldn't, but I think that, and I'm not bold enough to predict that, but I just like I know I don't disagree that Harbaugh is very good at turning teams around, but the team is not very good. Like at some point, you can't like make nothing look like something. Like, um,
Yeah. I mean, the only thing he's got going is Justin Herbert, right? And that's my not so likely, but like believable. I don't even want to say plausible in this case. Uh, Narrative or possibility is that Justin Herbert finally becomes the quarterback we think he can be. Maybe Jim Harbaugh can bring it out of him, but with the receivers, as you were just mentioning that they have, it's like is he going to do that with those receivers? If he was going to do it, you would have thought it would be with the receivers they used to have, like Keenan Allen and whatnot, Mike Williams. But yeah, I this is the. I mean, Justin Herbert's the quarterback. You know that meme where it's uh, Daniel Craig from one of those detective movies. Maybe it's Knives Out, where it's like it makes no damn sense. Compels me though. Justin
Yeah.
Herbert is just like that as a quarterback for me. Like I don't, he makes no damn sense, but compels me. I feel like maybe him and Jim Harbaugh figure something out, but I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like Justin Herbert is the perfect poster child for the like analytics stats versus wins losses group. You know, it's like he looks so great, he puts up great numbers, but like it just and I was always on board with Herbert being a great quarterback. And feel like when it really I started really thinking about it was in 2022 when we went to LA and beat them, because it was like when we play games like that against Josh Allen, like I think we had scored a touchdown to take the lead with about a minute and a half left, and Herbert couldn't move the ball on us and had like third and long and threw a pick to Nick Bolton. And it's like, I was just like, when this happens against Josh Allen, he comes down and scores. Like he needed a field goal to tie. And that's been 2 times that had happened in a row playing in LA, where it's like we scored, they needed a field goal to tie, and Herbert couldn't come down and do it. Or the first time, actually, he needed a field goal to win. We had come down to tie the game. He couldn't kick the field goal, and we won in overtime. And, it's anecdotal, and, it's not all on the quarterback, but at some point, it's like, if you're good, you're going to win games. At some point. And maybe it sounds like Brandon Staley was not a good coach. And, Anthony Lynn hasn't got a head coaching job since he left. So maybe he just needed a good coach. So maybe it's time now. But if it's not now, then you really start to think like, what, why aren't you winning? What's going on here?
Yeah. I think that's good. Right. If it's not now, then the jury is no longer out on Justin Herbert if he doesn't win now.
Yeah.
All right. Is that everything?
Now we just got to predict our conference championship teams and our Super Bowl.
So we're both doing this live, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was so hard for me to pick the division orders. Like I kept going back and forth on who I should have. All right, so I guess let's start in the NFC. Who is my NFC title game going to be?
I've got okay. Yeah. I'm happy to go first here for the NFC. Right. I think it's how happy am I to go first? I think it's Green Bay, San Francisco. I mean, I feel like I'm more confident in San Francisco than I am in Green Bay. But I'll go Green Bay, San Francisco in the title game. And then I'll wait for you to pick your title game participants before I pick a winner.
All right. Well, I'm going to be more out on a limb than you because I'm sticking with my guns as far as like not being huge on San Francisco. So I'm going Green Bay, Dallas.
I thought about that. That was my other possibility, yeah. Do you think it'll be in Dallas or in Green Bay?
I think it will be in Dallas because I think that Green Bay is going to have a little tougher road in their division, so they were not going to get as many wins as Dallas will in the regular season.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Can you imagine Jerry World hosting an NFC championship game? I don't think they've been to a conference title game since '95 when they won the Super Bowl.
Is that right? Holy cow. Yeah. Wow.
Maybe we'll save the winner for... Let's pick the AFC finalists first, and then we'll pick a winner.
AFC finalists. You want to go first, or you want me to go first? I don't care.
I guess
I think I know who you're going to pick, or at least I know what.
Yeah. I feel like I could guess yours. I'm gonna. Jeez. Oh, this is harder than I'm picking the Chiefs for sure. And then who are the Chiefs going to play? You know what? Should I do this? Yeah, I feel like for our bets and everything, I'm gonna pick the Chiefs playing the Jets in the AFC Championship game because if that happens, and then I have to be terrified that Aaron Rodgers is going to beat Mahomes in the AFC title game. Yeah, let's do
Oh,
that. The Chiefs and the
there'll be a
Jets.
lot at stake. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, I think I'm gonna do Chiefs and Houston. I'm not thrilled about Houston, but I think Chiefs Houston might be my pick. Um,
And so then
yeah.
who's playing in the Super Bowl?
Um, I mean, it's so boring to just pick a rematch of last year's Super Bowl, which is where I'm leaning. um, so maybe I'll pick. It's gonna be Chiefs and Packers. I just can't pick a look. I'm spoiling my like I cannot pick against the Chiefs in the playoffs at this point until someone shows me they can beat them. I don't see like why would you? It doesn't make sense to me. So I would. I'm telling you that I picked the Chiefs to three-peat now, but I think they'll maybe beat Green Bay in the Super Bowl.
I really considered it, but this is where the like you had asked me about Jordan Love and like whether I thought he was good enough, and I'm just gonna go Chiefs Dallas. I think the Cowboys get back to the Super Bowl after a really long time. I feel terrible picking this because it just sounds so unlikely when I say it, but the Cowboys are going to make the Super Bowl after all that we've seen. Mike McCarthy is going to lead Dak Prescott to the Super Bowl with Jerry Jones as the general manager. That's going to happen.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't seem when you put it that way, it doesn't sound likely. Uh, but I can see, they're a good team, and Prescott's a good quarterback. So, it shouldn't seem that unlikely. It's just the other people behind him that make it feel
I
strange, I
think
think.
more than anything, it's a testament to how I feel about the NFC as a conference. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't love the South. There's no team in the West that I'm like thrilled about because I'm off of San Francisco. The only other team is Detroit, and I don't love going behind Jared Goff. Like at least
Mhm.
with the Jordan Loves of the world. I mean, I guess you could argue the same thing with Dak Prescott, but I just don't know that I Dak Prescott's never been bad. He's had bad playoff games, and I gotta give him that. But I don't know. Yeah,
No,
I
but
mean
he is
it's
a really good quarterback. Like
yeah.
I mean, he had a streak there of like, what was it, a streak of 400-yard games or something? I can't remember what it was. He had a really impressive streak. It was last year or the year before of like total yardage.
And the other thing is
He can move it.
Dallas is very good at home, and that hasn't always translated to the playoffs. I mean, it certainly didn't last year when they played Green Bay. But uh, man,
Yeah.
actually, thinking about Green Bay just shellacking Dallas in Dallas, and now I'm picking Dallas to beat Green Bay in the NFC title game. Yikes! But oh
I mean,
well.
there might have been a degree of just like, holy cow, they're actually good, or they're out in front of us, and then we start panicking, kind of to
Yeah.
Dallas's game there. It did feel like that had the feeling of a kind of like the Steelers 2005 playoff run where they just like jumped on teams early and then surprised them with their game plan or whatever. I mean, I feel like that it felt kind of like that for the Packers in the playoffs last year. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. It wouldn't shock me if they meet again and Dallas beats them.
And the Packers, though, they did play. I liked how they looked playing against San Francisco too. Like they were a good
Yeah,
playoff team last year.
yeah.
Oof, this is tough. Maybe I feel like I'm gonna regret not picking the Packers, but because like the more I think about it, I'm thinking Packers. But I'm sticking with Dallas. I feel like I've seen a lot of people have the Packers in the Super Bowl, and I don't want to. I'm Chiefs
Yeah.
Cowboys, and as you probably imagine, I'm picking the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl.
I don't know why one would not pick the Chiefs, to be honest, unless they just don't, unless they have alternate motivations as opposed to being right. Because the Chiefs just have another gear in the playoffs, and they know the playoffs better than anyone else does. They know how to do this. I don't. What? Why would you think anyone else is going to stop them at this point? Until you see it, I don't. I don't think it's going to happen.
I th- I think yeah, I honestly think it's people get scared off by the fact that no one has three-peated. And so it's like
Yeah.
there's a reason why all these other good teams have it. And I think people are overrating Travis Kelsey's demise. Like when people talk about how they felt like he wasn't that great last year, like he was still on 1,000-yard pace last year. He sat out week 17 and he missed it by 16 yards or something. And he missed week 1 because he got injured. And I think that was kind of, he got hurt right before week 1 in the last practice of the before week 1. Then he hurt himself again week 4 against the Vikings. He sprained his ankle. So like he was kind of up and down all year playing with injuries. He was getting blanketed. Like, I'm not expecting Travis Kelce to have 1,400 yards this year, but I think people are going to be surprised. It's like, oh, he's still pretty good. Like this, he's not going to have 600 either. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I expect him to get 1,000 yards again. In fact, I think it's more likely that Travis Kelce gets 1,000 yards than Stephon Diggs. Put that.
You make a compelling case. I think you're right. I mean, just look at how he was in the playoffs, right? He does have that extra gear still, and if he has it, then he can use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So both of us are picking the Chiefs to win again. We'll see how we feel about that in 4 hours after the first game of the season here. But I do think, yeah, hard to see it not. I mean, I can definitely see it not happening, right? Strange stuff happens, but
Yeah.
if I was going to predict the most likely thing, it would be the Chiefs winning.
Yeah. I mean, definitely I think that, it's very hard to win Super Bowls, and a lot of things have to go right. And fortunately for the Chiefs, a lot of things went right the last 2 years, and let's hope it happens again.
Yeah. Well, that'll be fun. All right. Next year, the Steelers will win. That's my. No, I think we're a couple of years away at best. But
that would be good
I'll
for
be
the
wrong.
podcast brand.
Yeah.
Chiefs
Yeah.
win, then the Steelers win.
Or if we play in the AFC Championship to this.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Can you
man.
imagine?
I feel like we'd have to go to that game.
We'd have to do something. Yeah, something special. Okay. Well, anything else we should cover in this episode?
No, I don't think so. Do you want to do a brief prediction for the game tonight, even though everyone's going to hear this after the game's over?
Yeah. Well, that serves as good.
Oh, let's predict the Steelers-Falcons game.
Okay. Well, let's predict both.
Okay.
Chiefs, Ravens. You want to go final score?
Yeah, let's do score.
Okay. I think it's 27-20 Chiefs.
27-20. Okay, I think I'm going to go 34-24 Chiefs.
Okay.
I envision this as a game where I think we get out early. We put up 24 in the first half, and it's 24-10 at halftime or something, and then we just kind of cruise.
Yeah, I could see it. I kind of think the Chiefs will have an early lead, with all the excitement and momentum from just sort of having the first game of the season and doing the championship banner and whatnot. I assume they're doing some sort of championship banner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably very soon, actually. It's 7:09 Eastern time right now, so
Yeah,
they're probably dropping the banner very soon.
Chiefs or Steelers, Falcons. Well, Russell Wilson might not be playing. Not that really is a
Wait,
huge
I didn't
deal,
know that.
to be honest.
What happened there?
He's got more calf tightness today.
Oh, good.
Which you think, how can a calf be that? How can it linger that much? But it's still lingering. So, might be Justin Fields. I don't know. Who knows? I think
Is this in Atlanta or in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, it's Atlanta. I could see it. I think maybe this is a tough one. 20-17 Falcons. Where it would go.
Oh, it's going to be a weird game because they're always weird. I'm going to go 19-14 Steelers, the Arthur Smith revenge game.
Yeah. Yeah. If we win, it'll be some weird point total, 19 or 18 or something like that. Yeah.
It'll be 14-12, and then Justin Fields will run for a touchdown with 3 minutes to go in the game, and then the defense shuts the door.
See that. Yeah, I definitely can see that.
And it'll be their first touchdown of the game. It'll be 4 field goals up through until like 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Justin Fields runs one in to take a 19-14 lead, and then the defense shuts the door on Kirk Cousins.
There you have it. You don't even have to watch the game. In fact, that is like so plausible that I don't know. I would, that's incredibly plausible. I don't know.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm probably gonna watch Red Zone, but I will. I will watch the
I wouldn't
all
watch the
22
Steelers
after
game
the
if I
game.
weren't a fan. Yeah, it's gonna be boring as heck. uh,
I'll watch the key
that,
plays on all 22 after the game, and we'll put up a film review.
that's the advice of a Steelers fan. Don't watch the Steelers game this weekend. It's not gonna be fun. But do watch the Chiefs game. I think that'll be fun. All right.
All right. Well, thanks again to all of you all that follow along. Again, we're at STCF715 on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Well, I'll try to tweet out during the Chiefs and the Steelers games. Definitely after the games, I'm going to try to post some commentary about what happened, maybe with some clips, and then we'll do the all 22 whenever that comes out. So we're going to set a goal of doing this every week, and we will see how long we're able to keep our goal.
All right. That's awesome. All right, and then we'll see you next week too. We'll be recording at some point. I guess we have to discuss that, but we'll figure it out.
Sounds good. All right. Until next time.